Going about your daily life, a good job, living fairly comfortably, and doing okay financially. But what do we do if you're not particularly happy or you're not feeling fulfilled? Hello and welcome to the Ultra Running Podcast with me, Coach Marshy. I hope you are all well. So we're going to bring in today's guest. So I'd like to welcome Ian to the show. How are you, Ian?
Hey everybody. Yes, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you. A beautiful sunny afternoon here in Santiago, Chile.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm sure everyone in the UK who's listening to this will be very jealous of that right now as we're covered in rain and wind. So no, I'm sure you're lapping the sun up. So Ian, just before we get into anything, let's talk about who you are, where you're from, and sort of what your background is on a day-to-day basis.
Fantastic. My name's Ian Morgan, originally from New Zealand, born and bred, but now living in Spain in a town called Sitges, just south of Barcelona. But I spend a bit of time also in Chile, where my wife is from, and we spend the summers in Chile basically, and the spring and summers in Europe in the racing season. At the moment, I've made it to 51 years old, hopefully 52 this year. We'll see how we go. But yeah, that's a basic rundown. Simple, normal, average Kiwi guy, just doing what I love.
So I'm sure we'll dive into it and unpack it as we go, but sort of give us a brief overview of your kind of running journey, if you like. When did it kind of start, and what was it that got you into the running world?
Yeah, good question. To be honest, I'm not one of those natural born running people. I ran in high school, did school athletics, cross country, and then basically late teens, early 20s, stopped everything. Started running again in my mid 40s, about 43, 44, I guess. And for 2 years is like, it was a lot of hit and miss kind of stuff. So injury, getting into it, but not like the passion that it grew as I ran more, I guess, the passion that I have now. So yeah, in between that, I was very unfit, got overweight, had numerous health issues, and here I am today doing this full time, traveling and running around the world at 51. So yeah, I guess a lot of people want to know, how did I get from point A to point B? That's the one I get asked the most about. So that's what we're here today to find out.
Yeah, and I think obviously I connected with you via social media, and looking through your posts and reading them in depth and going right back, you can get a good kind of feel for where you might have come from. But just before we really unpack it and dive into it, just sort of explain where you started from in terms of health and who you were back then as a kind of more of a businessman, everyday job. Go for it.
Okay. So yeah, about 43 years old, I started running. Before that, probably 2 to 3 years, I was under like a lot of stress. We'd had a series of earthquakes in New Zealand. I've been fighting insurance companies, etc., in court for about 2.5 years. It was just, a very difficult time in my life, going through a separation, then an eventual divorce. A lot of, we lost our family home as well in the earthquake, as well as some of our properties and business. So it was just a really stressful, difficult time. And, I was overweight. I didn't do any exercise, and I mean nothing. If I could avoid walking to the car, to get into the car, I was one of those people that looked for the closest park at the supermarket or anywhere, so I didn't have to walk so far to my appointment or go shopping. So yeah, you know, in my Instagram, I think I put sort of around 102 to 103 kgs. But to be honest, I remember being at the doctor's once, and I was, you know, getting up sort of around 109 on the scales, and you know, possibly I just had a big lunch as well, which looks quite different to the lunches I have now. So yeah, I was this overweight guy. I mean, you know, the world I was in was not a lot of sleep, a lot of stress, eating poorly, sleeping poorly, no exercise, and it was basically a one-way ticket to health problems, and eventually, I would say, an early grave in regards to my family history of heart issues and health issues. So yeah, to set the stage, I was an overweight, unfit business guy that really just didn't take care of a lot of aspects of my life.
So let's say 100, you know, between 102, 109 kilos, whatever you were. What kind of height are you? Just to give the guys some perspective on that as well.
So 187 centimeters, so about 6'1".
Yeah.
So I didn't look too bad for the height I was, but yeah, I mean, obviously you could see there was some issue. Most of the weight was around my middle, so yeah.
And to dive into that little intro then that I mentioned, I talked about and I'm quoting you here off one of your posts, so I hope you don't mind that I looked into that depth. And you know, you use the term not particularly happy and not fulfilled, although
Yeah.
you were doing okay and you were financially okay. To sort of unpack that a little bit, what does that mean in more depth? You know, where were you at mentally with that?
Yeah. When I would say happy, I mean, obviously, you know, I love my kids and my friends and my family and all those things. So it wasn't like this terrible dread of like I didn't like anyone around me. What it basically was I guess an inward examination of who I was and what I was doing with my life and how I didn't really like myself. I was pursuing something that I wasn't passionate about, that I wasn't really interested in, but I was doing it out of a sense of I don't know, obligation, what I'd sort of been raised to believe, societal, I don't know, I wouldn't say pressures, but societal norms. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. There's nothing wrong with being a business person. There's nothing wrong with working hard for money or wealth or whatever you want. I've got no issue with that whatsoever. But it wasn't what I was passionate about. I wasn't interested in it. And it was just basically, I'd created this, it's like this world, or it's a cage, I guess. And it wasn't a cage, but metaphorically a cage that I put myself into. You know, I had to do this to produce this, to pay all these bills, to maintain this lifestyle, to continue down this path. And I just wasn't happy with it. And, you know, it wasn't the cage that I built. It was me, the fact that I built it myself. I was trapping myself in this sort of this dogma of doing these things. And it was like, you know, when you're digging a hole that you don't want to be in, stop digging. And, you know,
Yeah.
I guess there was that moment that came when I said, man, I just got to stop digging and figure out what's going on here with me. And I think that was it. It was more internal self unhappiness than anything else around me.
And in my day job, I work with a lot of people around sort of weight loss and sort of lifestyle change. And we talk about light bulb moments. So when you're digging that hole, and you decide it's time, was there anything particular, or was it just time to move and change the way you were going?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, the earthquakes it put so much stress on me, and it made me examine that I'd spent so many years working for all these things to build up, and then within 10 seconds of you know, an earthquake, most of what I had was taken away. And I thought, well, I'll be fine because I have all these insurances. And then I learned that the rules change when the amounts of money get bigger. And, you know, what you think you're covered for in life changes in an instant. And it really made me examine what I thought was safe and secure, and all the planning in the world could basically, you could have the rug pulled from underneath you at any moment. And I think, you know, probably we could all relate to that with COVID and the pandemic over the last few years. that things can change that we have no control over. So the earthquakes taught me this, and they made me really examine how I thought about my life, what I thought was safe and secure, and what was important was to make the most of each moment. We lost in the city. There were about 100. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sorry, Christchurch residents. About 183 lives were lost, and a lot of people injured, permanent injuries with things falling on them. And know some of the people that died, and this was in an instant, those people were living their lives. Everything was planned. Everything was set. They were going to retire at 65, etc., etc. And then, like that, everything changes. And I thought, man, am I living the life that I would, if that happened, again at any moment, would I actually have done the things I wanted to do in my life? And the answer was no, and on so many levels. And I didn't really like who I was as a person after that happened. That earthquake sort of triggered something, it's like it shook something inside of me that said, man, you're not really living. You're existing, you're functioning, but you're not living. So that's when sort of the clock started, I guess. And it took a few years, obviously, just like a slow fuse, burned away. And then it came to a moment, probably about 3-4 years down the track after the quakes, about 3 years down the track, where I had sort of a light bulb moment.
And just remind us, the quakes were, what was that, about 2010?
2010, 2011. So
Yeah. And okay, so lots to unpack here, but it's great. Let's go with what you said about the part, like the car park in the supermarket, and you'd be the guy that was going to be in the nearest place to the door, right? So
yeah.
Let's bear that in mind, and let's jump all the way to where you are now and what you do right now. So what is it that you do right now in terms of running?
Yeah, well, it's quite different to that guy. I'm now a full-time ultra runner. I guess you could say influencer. I don't, it's not my kind of term, because I don't influence anyone. I just tell my story. But in social media speak, influencer. We work with some brands, etc. But the main thing that I do is travel the world and run and ultra distance events, which is anything over a marathon distance, so anything over 26.2 miles or 42 Ks. And that can be from 50K, 100K, 200K, 100 milers, whatever, on mountains and deserts, through forests, pretty much anywhere. I'll give it a go.
So at the risk of sounding like a fanboy, how many 100 milers have you done?
Not so many, actually. I think a couple for the 100 milers. The stage races, I've done more. So like 250K, 270K, these kinds of things, where you run a set distance each day and then you camp in a tent, and then you run from that tent to the next campsite the next day. But yeah, it's a work in progress. Lots more 100Ks, to be honest.
So if we look at it from a kind of perspective of, you obviously lost a lot of weight. Anyone who follows you on social media will know that, but not just that. From that guy in the car park closest space to doing these multi-day events, stage races, 100 milers, what was the main kind of mindset shift, and how did it happen on a really basic layman's level?
Wow. The mindset shift came from living so much in the past and in the future, in my sort of old life, if we could call it that, to living in the moment in this new part of my life, this new section. So rather than planning for everything that was going to happen, and sort of berating or examining everything that myself, or examining everything that had happened in my life, I just thought, man, I've got to experience what today offers, and really immerse myself in that experience. So if it's a training session that sucks and I don't feel it, it's like I'm there, I get through it. I do what I need to do, and then I leave it in that day. I don't go over and examine everything and relive it and say, oh, now I'm not going to be able to do this because of this. I just deal with what I have to do in the moment. So I think really, you know, it's about, for me, going from a place of living in all these different sort of future selves and past selves to just being me now.
Like in the moment, yeah?
Yeah, totally in the moment, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I'd imagine that's something that a lot of people would love to master, but actually probably is it's quite difficult. Like you say, your future self, you got this vision, and then you've got the past that obviously affects you and plays on your mind and can influence. And you know, I'm someone who's very much probably there in that world of past and future selves,
Yes.
and probably need to live in the moment a bit more. And listening to you there, actually, I know of 3 or 4 clients that I've spoke to in the last 7 days that would benefit from that, and they're not even runners. And
Yeah.
it's like a mindset shift. So that's really interesting to hear. But in terms of, so like the British way, if you like, is when you become a runner, you do the whole couch to 5K, then you do a 10K, and then you do a half marathon, then a marathon. And then,
Yes.
to be honest, other than the last decade, there's not really been much beyond the marathon in this part of the world for us in the UK. But that's really changed in the last sort of 3 years. It's become a lot more widely available. You know, the long-term races have always been here, I guess, the ultras, but they have now entered our world more often. So we're finding that here in the UK, we've got a lot more people getting involved in the ultra marathon world. So did you go through that conventional kind of step-by-step process, or was it a bit different?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did do the conventional thing, the kind of, you know, 5K, 10K, joined a running group, did a half marathon, full marathon. So yeah, I went through that conventional process. Funny story, my wife Fran, she kind of did the opposite. She started with a 5, 10K and then just went straight to ultras. So
Fantastic, brilliant. Why not? Absolutely, why not?
yeah, and you know, I think this is the main the point that's quite important is it doesn't really matter whether you do it progressively. I mean, that's obviously advised. A lot of coaches will say that's advised, and mostly because the physiological changes, so your body can adapt to the stresses, etc. However, some people just naturally jump in at the deep end, and if that works for them, then that's okay as well. Not recommending sort of either path, but certainly for me, it was a slow, steady work in progress. The first few years was, you know, a series of mishaps, mistakes, injuries, and learning, a steep learning curve before I sort of got the hang of what my body was capable of and what I could do to push it and develop it further.
Yeah, no, I know 1 or 2, I think 2 people that didn't do a marathon and a half. They sort of went 10K to ultra first and then went back and did that bit. But obviously it sounds like your wife did that as well. So that's that's a really interesting perspective as well that you say about you know, the important part of that and the physiological changes that the body has to go through. In your training, sort of where you're at now, or as a kind of professional ultra runner, what is your kind of hours per week, just to give some perspective?
Yeah, well, I use my my coach Scotty Hawker, or I should say, he trains me, and he's a professional ultra runner as well. Although he's at an elite level, I think second at CCC, third at UTMB, this kind of thing. So he's yeah, he's a top-notch bloke too. He's also a Kiwi, so that helps. Understand my language, I should say, or,
Yeah, yeah.
or what we're saying. So yeah, my training. On an average training block, I'll be looking at about between 100 to 140 kilometers a week running, a little bit of walking, maybe some cross training. It kind of depends where I'm at in the world and what's available at the time. Obviously, when we're in Spain, we live next to the ocean, so we go down to the beach most days and do a little bit of swimming. That helps too. So strength training about 5 times a week. And when I say strength training, it's not like an hour in the gym each day. It's like, you know, like general maintenance work, because I've built a lot of the inherent strength that I've needed to do. You don't, once you get to that point, you don't need to like keep building more, because you just break your body down. So it's basically a maintenance mode. And then when I'm training for a specific event, my coach will adjust that to like suit the event. So probably one hard session will be like once a week. And the other 4 are going to be like maintenance core stuff, some, basic free weights, but nothing too stressful, just to maintain.
Yeah, I
So
mean, my background is strength training and strength conditioning a lot. So, with that one hard session,
yeah,
is that sort of, is there any Olympic lifting involved? Is there any sort of kind of heavy lifting involved, or
yeah,
heavy
it's
pressing?
more low rep, high weight. It's like really putting some stress on the body. And it depends on the event, like I said too. So I do more runner specific strength training. So the strength training I would do for a marathon would be different than the strength training I would do for a 100K ultra with 7,000 meters of climbing, because the stresses are different. So yeah, the heavy session is one a week. If I was starting from like a point of coming back from injury or some issue, then yeah, it would start light, but there will probably be a couple of heavier sessions in there a week for, sort of around a 4 to 6 week period to like really like get some gains going, and then go back into a maintenance mode. Because something I've learned from my own, like each client is different, obviously. From my own experience is you have to find that balance for your body between strength training that benefits your running and, overdoing the strength training, then your running suffers, or vice versa, overdoing the running and then the strength training suffers. So it's like, it's walking this line in the race season of where everything fits. And I think that's really about knowing yourself and knowing how your body works. Obviously, I would recommend getting regular blood tests too, because that's going to tell you like a lot of things about what's going on with your muscles, with your all your operating systems, basically.
Yeah, and I think when you say, you mentioned the other 4 sessions being, so one would be quite a heavy session, say, or a longer session. Are the other ones sort of made up of lots of body weight and core work?
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
obviously body weight goes anywhere that you are.
Yeah,
You can do that in any place you're staying, I guess, or in any part of the world. So yeah, cool. I mean, we could go to town on that, but we won't get into depth about
exactly.
the
And
strength
and
training.
it's like stressing different things, obviously. Yourself. Push exercise, pull exercises, working different muscles, extension, contraction, etc., etc. And I think it's, I'm not an expert in this area, so I can only like just get a program, and then I do this, and then I do a little bit of research about why I'm doing it, and then I say, okay, that's what I got to do. Otherwise, I think with all the information out there on strength and conditioning and runners and what are the right mobility exercises, you can get lost in the noise and actually, try to do a bit of everything, because there's always new information coming out too about what's best and what's not. And then you don't actually get anything done, because you're always trying to, and I'm not saying you shouldn't learn, but like you have to like follow through, be consistent with the program. If you're getting the results what you're after, then it's working. If you're not, then you have a word to your coach, and if it's a good coach, they'll adjust it to suit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I echo all of that. And as a coach as well to a local running club that I founded here, I do a lot of their strength work, and we very much look at every single individual. And I think as an athlete for you, do you find it important to know why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's like I follow what my coach says, but he asks for feedback. So every week we have a chat about what's happening. Even after each session, if something's not quite right, I'll send him a message, and he'll adjust. And so we look at it, on a, I wouldn't say daily basis, but certainly a weekly recap of how the body is, how it's feeling, and then he can sort of look at that and say, okay, so over this sort of like 4 to 6 week block or 8 week block, we want to be here, but we're here or we're here. What do we need to adjust to change that? So it's really about questioning, are you getting the results you want? If you're not, what do you feel yourself needs to change? And what can you ask, your coach or other professionals? And when I say just your coach, like obviously ask your doctor to, ask your physio, get different inputs, but don't every time. I find this, especially with new runners, every time someone says, do this, hey, look at this is the latest thing, they're like, all over here. And with any kind of training, you do need some consistency. I think consistency with feedback and making those adjustments to see what works. But don't chase the next big thing all the time. Otherwise, you're just going to end up going nowhere.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's so much good information there. And I think what I've always told my clients, and I don't say that it has to be me, but I say kind of, when you're new to running, be a sponge, absorb everything, and then go to someone that is your go-to guru, like your head coach or whatever you are, and ask them what they think about that. And then try and work out what bits work for you and what doesn't. Because like you said, it's a bit of a can of worms, the internet, when it comes to the S&C and the running advice out there now as well. Do we run fast to go fast, or do we run slow to go fast, or how do we do it? And there's lots there.
I think yourself, there's a lot of basics, like with any sport or activity or anything you do, there's some basics that if you do them well, they're going to build a good foundation. So if you stick to mostly those and then fine tune the rest, you're probably going to, most of the time be okay.
Yeah, no, wicked. Great advice. Love it. So in terms of, I'm going to jump to a question that I normally ask right at the end, but let's go on your journey where you kind of decided it was time to go to ultra running. So however you got to that point, what made you decide that you were going to do ultra running? Was it something that you kind of seen and been inspired by in the media? Was it that you knew someone else doing it, or was it kind of just a natural next step? Which would you say was kind of, how would you categorize it?
I'll be lying if I said I wasn't drawn to the crazy people in the sport. It was just like I said, my running was a progression. So the 5K, the 10K, 21 marathon, and I think I'd run 3-4 marathons, and I thought, okay, do I get faster at these? That's a possibility, and I realized it will be a lot of work, and that's fine. But then, obviously being in that marathon world, you start to bump into some ultra runners that use them for training and keep their sort of foot in the road scene. And I thought, man, like these guys are running like beyond, I mean, running a marathon, you think, man, that's tough. And it is. And physically, it's probably tougher than a 50K or even 100K in the sense of the pace you have to hold on the road. And maintain, especially the faster you go, that it's tough. So I thought, man, this is fascinating. These guys I'm talking to from all walks of life that are running these ultras, they're like a little nutty. I should say guys, women, people, folks, everyone.
I use that language as well. I use guys as everyone.
Yeah, so that's a Kiwi thing too. It's like guys, yeah. So it's like, man, these people are like a little nutty, a little crazy, a little on edge, but they're like the nicest people. They're like so cool, and they're usually quite subdued people. They're quite quiet. They keep to themselves, and they just go out and do this amazing stuff in these amazing places. And I thought, this just fascinated me. What makes them tick, and what are my limits? I started to think, man, so that's the marathon, but what's I know, after running, I think 3 or 4. And this isn't coming from a place of like ego or any male sort of crap like that. It's just like, okay, so I know I can, on any given day, I could go out and run one of these. So what's the challenge in it now to get faster? Okay, but what's something that I know I can't do? What's something that I don't know if I'm going to get to the end? And I thought, ultras. That's it.
Yeah. And just to call you out on what you said earlier, you talked about your past self, your future self, and not being in the moment. when you're in an ultra race, do you feel like that is the absolute kind of pinnacle of that description? You are in the moment.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the moment is what's happening right now is your life. That's it. You're not thinking about, well, when I get to the finish, I got to have a shower and I got to make sure I do this, and next week I've got this bill to pay. It's like all of that goes, everything, and you're just there, and you can be in a place of a lot of pain. It can be hungry, you can be cold, it can be 3 a.m, raining on top of a mountain. You're in that moment. You're not thinking that far ahead other than getting to the next aid station or the next checkpoint, and okay, that's my thing. So you really are, I don't know, I really feel more alive in an ultra, in a race where I just am completely focused on and engrossed in what I'm doing. That's it. There's nothing outside of that.
Yeah, no, brilliant, love that. It's I can relate, but probably nowhere near to what you can relate, but I can relate to that from doing an ultra marathon. And I think anyone who's listening will know that literally in that moment there's a little bit of survival going on, a little bit of survival instinct, and you can't be anywhere else. You are living in that moment, and you see the scenery that's around you. You might be hallucinating or talk to something that isn't really there, or whatever's going on in your
been
mind.
there, done that. Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of stories that you hear about where people are being chased by various things in the forest, and actually there was nothing really there, or it was their wife or their partner. So I think great, being in the moment is really important. So you touched on it as well. What do you think to our kind of ultra running community?
Sorry, the ultra running community.
Yeah. What do you think? You sort of touched on it, and what do you think about it?
Yeah, it's incredible, man. It's one of the reasons I sort of got into the sport and have like continued in it and stayed in it and embraced it even more, because the variety of people that you meet, the I don't know, there's just something that's intangible that about ultra runners that I'm really drawn to. I mean, my wife Fran is an ultra runner too, and I think you get excited about talking about doing these things that other people would think it's horrible. Like you were going along, you'd fallen over, you cut your knee open. It's like, say, raining, cold, dark, whatever. Maybe you've fallen down a bank, maybe you've broken something, and you start talking with these people, and everyone's swapping these stories and talking about it like with some kind of perverse joy. And I think, man, this is like super cool. And maybe it's a thing. Maybe ultra runners are actually mentally a little unstable. I don't know, but if that's the case, then hey, I'm happy. So
one of the obvious questions to would ask at this point is, what does your wife think about it? But she's clearly in that game as well. But what do your family think about it? What does your wife and your kind of immediate family around you think of that?
Yeah, certainly my wife. Well, I would say she's probably more so than me. She's like the most determined ultra runner person I know. She will go into a race, undertrained, not necessarily fully prepared, and she will finish it, and she will finish it regardless. Like, I'm talking like, she'll just push through pretty much anything. I've seen her do some amazing stuff. So yeah, she's on board. In regards to the rest of the family, well, my mum, who's passed away now, she was always worried. It worried her and stressed her out quite a bit. I think I always had to call her or message her after any event to let her know I was safe. My brothers and sisters, I mean, they've accepted it now. They're used to it. My kids are like, they worry.
How old are your kids?
Kids from sort of like early 20s to 30s. Yeah.
So they absolutely can comprehend what's going on.
Yeah, totally. So they're all grown up kids now. It's not their scene, so they're just like, oh, that's just something like Dad does, and it's crazy. And given I think the health things I had with COVID and whatever, they got a bit worried and were like, well, maybe you should like ease off a bit now. And it's like, well, I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, generally everyone's supportive of it. They've accepted it's what makes me happy. I think that's probably the most important thing, and that's the easiest way to describe it. But people outside that world, friends that I've had that knew me in my previous life, they just think I'm nuts. Yeah.
And do you have any barriers with that? Are they still close friends, or have they kind of drifted?
Yeah, no, they're still friends. They just accept it. It's like, yeah, okay, well, he's happy. He's doing what he loves to do. So, I mean, obviously you lose some people along the way. People just don't. I mean, I mean, and it's not I've lost people. I've changed in quite a lot of ways. Moving into this world, I live a lot more of a nomadic existence. I don't have this like, work in the office 5-6 days a week or whatever. Have a regular sort of like lifestyle. Now my weekends are spent a lot of the time at training. I'm traveling a lot. My training schedule doesn't allow for like, go out to a party and stay till 2 in the morning. I'm thinking about getting up for a run at 5. You lose a certain social aspect of it, and that sort of falls away. But that's more because I've changed more than anyone else has necessarily.
And quick comparison of the two lifestyles. Are you much happier now? Do you prefer this lifestyle? Is it a great lifestyle, or is it one that we
Yeah,
should
for sure.
stop chasing?
I mean, I've gone from owning like houses and cars and bikes and toys and whatever to nothing. Like I don't have a house, I don't have a car, I don't have a bicycle, I don't have a kayak, I don't have a TV or anything like this. So, I've basically gone from the dream of having everything that most people, would say, man, why? Why did you get rid of everything, to having nothing? But I don't know. For me, it's like unburdening myself from the things that were holding me back. Not anyone else, obviously. Like, I still have an iPhone and a Mac and a whatever. But for me, this sort of like nomadic, free lifestyle just really suits me at this point in my life.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That I'd imagine, there'll be people that will listen to this and are in the ultra world that would have aspirations to do that. And you keep giving all these little anecdotal stories that are brilliant, because you're showing us how you've done it. I don't know if you realize that when you're talking through your story, but there's so much there from your experience that is just saying to me, oh yeah, how important is that really? Is it really important? Whereas, particularly there, you say about getting up at 5 a.m. to go for a run. To be honest, uninjured Neil, that's my definition of fun.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, sure. I want to be out there running, and by 9 o'clock, I've done 20 odd miles or so, and the rest of the world's just crawling out of bed with a hangover. I absolutely love that. That's quality. So yeah, couple of kind of timely things around the time of recording this. So here we are in March 2021, and on the day of recording, we're the day after the Barkley Marathon finished. I don't know if you kept up with it at all, but what do you think to the Barkley Marathon? Is it something that you would go and look at?
Well, that's a whole next level kind of insanity. No one finished again this year. I think the guys did, I think 4 loops, was it? Or they finished on the 4th loop this time?
Yeah, 4 loops, yeah.
And it's not on my radar because it's so different, but it's certainly something I would consider doing at some point in the future. More is like, once I've got the standard type of races out of my system, I just like something challenging that seems just impossible. It just sounds like a sufferfest of bashing around in the woods, trying to keep your wits about you, figuring out what, your directions, where you need to go next, find the next page to give you, your instructions on where to go. Getting cold, getting cut by plants, and it's kind of like a little crazy, but yeah, it's something that I would like to give a go, over the next several years for sure.
Is there any? Do you know if there's many Kiwis that have attempted it?
No, to be honest, I don't know. I don't know.
Has there ever been a Kiwi finisher? I don't know if there has been.
No, I don't think there has been. No.
No. So, okay, and then other sort of relevant topics, COVID, the pandemic. You're this ultra runner, but
Yeah,
yet you ended up in hospital with COVID.
I certainly did. Yes, yes.
So, do
Um,
you want to give us a little bit of a story on that? Because, people might have this perception from the media or whatever that it's the unhealthy that are struggling with COVID. But actually, you're an ultra runner. You're one of the fittest guys alive. Surely you can't get in hospital from COVID, but you did. So what happened?
exactly. Well, actually, interesting, directly related to that question is the doctor that was treating me said we do tend to see athletes that get it, like fit athletes. If they do get it, they usually get it quite bad, but for a shorter space of time. So they tend to recover reasonably quickly and bounce back without any long-term side effects or issues. Yeah, I guess it was just genetics. Who knows? There could be any. The doctor said it's just one of those things. But I've been running quite a bit at the time. Had quite a stressful year, 2020. Obviously, the start of the pandemic. Lots of things going on. Got quite sick, and I caught COVID. I got tested. I knew I had it, but I didn't go and get treated. I thought, okay, once again, it's kind of I applied the ultra runner thing of just work through it and you'll be fine, rather than actually realizing I was getting sicker, that I was getting a fever. And by the time I got into hospital, I'd already got pneumonia in my lungs. So I'd left it, way too long. I should have gone in to seek treatment a lot earlier. So, my fault, not like COVID and not like really to do with the fitness side of things. So yeah, I let it go on too long. Because I was training quite a bit at the time, the doctor also explained my immune system is like on an edge. He said, like, you're pushing your body. I mean, for example, the day I started to really feel sick and get fever, the day before I'd done like a 35k run, and I wasn't feeling right, and I knew I wasn't feeling right, but I just went out and did it. It's 35k, something like this. So my body was already like trying to recover from that and a week of training, 100 odd k's, whatever, and I wasn't feeling right. So my immune system was already like at near its limit, because it's always trying to recover and repair. And then, I got sick. I didn't take care of myself and ended up in hospital. To say that, within sort of 3 days of being in hospital, just on oxygen, not on a ventilator or anything, and some steroid medication, some very basic medication actually that they gave me, I bounced back pretty quickly. So normally the stay at that point in time in the COVID ward I was in was, on average, it was between 14 to 30 days for most people. I was out in 7. So they said by about day 5, they said, look, you basically, we've got to keep you here for a minimum of 7 days. It's like policy. So I just basically, I did push-ups and stuff in my isolation room while I was waiting. That's not to say it took a few months to sort of come back to full fitness, but I mean, it's one of those things. I've had pneumonia before when I was younger, so maybe there's like some predisposition that I sort of have like some kind of genetic thing towards it. But I mean, I recovered, to bounce back, and I haven't had it since. So there you go.
No, cool. Yeah, no, that answers my next question about how it went. And you're obviously fully fit now and firing on all cylinders again. So in terms of a couple more questions then, just to kind of round this off. So for someone who's coming into the ultra world, I would imagine their experience of our community is what you can see on YouTube and Netflix and whatever else. So in terms of like a bigger race that the majority of people would know, what, you know, have you've been in UTMB, you've been in CCC, or, you know, what races have you sort of done?
Oh, wow. Well, in regards to UTMB, it's actually my first year this year. CCC I'll be running, mainly because it got put off for the pandemic. It was meant to be 2020, then 21. Even though they ran it, I was like, you know, I don't know if it's going to go ahead or not, so I deferred it again. But yeah, I'm going this year. So yeah, hopefully we'll get that one ticked off, all being well. Like whatever's going on in Europe now, let's hope that things resolve themselves before then.
Yeah.
So other races that people would know, Boston Marathon, I guess, in regards to the road side of things. Ultra-wise, Lavaredo, Ultra Pirineu. Let me think. What other races have we done? Madeira, Ultra Trail. A lot of Aiga, Ultra Trail. I don't know. I mean, I should keep track of them better, actually. Yeah,
we've done. That's really cool.
Yeah, we've done a lot of the like Ultra Trail. Well, it's not Ultra Trail World Tour now, is it? A lot of those sort of known Ultra Trail races on the circuit. Yeah.
And on that note, then, if there was a bucket list race or two that you would like to do, what have you got? Any bucket list race?
Yeah, most of them. UTMB, obviously, the 170 around Mont Blanc, and that will be like, I wanted to do CCC first to basically a course reconnaissance, so do sort of like most of it. So UTMB, the main race there. Doing the Val d'Aran 100 mile this year as well, which is one I've wanted to do. I only started it last year, but I did the 55, but I wanted to, the 100 mile like loops the valley. So that looks amazing too. Probably do MDS, the Marathon des Sables, the desert race, because I did a desert stage race in Dubai, a 270K race, and I just loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think I lost most of my toenails, but I enjoyed the experience so much. And running in the desert on the sand is an entirely different experience. So yeah, I think those ones, and funnily enough, the marathon world major races, just because I'm an ultra runner, but I like to do like one marathon a year. So I thought, well, why not, like do the majors? So yeah.
So you've done Boston already. Have you got any of the others ticked off already? You done London?
No. But apparently I'm good for age group for the London, and I just ran I ran the Barcelona marathon, which isn't one of them, but I ran it end of last year, and I just came off an ultra actually in some races, and I knocked out like a 250. So I thought, wow, if I actually trained, I can like get all the good for age time entries for these races. So I just thought, well, I might as well just do that. So I'll focus each year on like running one of those and running that race to get the time to qualify to get into the next one. So yeah, London, Paris, obviously the European ones, Berlin to get done first, and then hop over to the US, and then finish probably in Tokyo at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think you've probably done the hardest one to get into in terms of Boston anyway. So it's hard to qualify and it's hard to get in. So you've already ticked that one off. This question I really like. You can be as short or as long as you need to be. But what does running mean to you?
Wow. For me, it's become a lifestyle. So it's more than something I do. It's actually my lifestyle. I mean, how cool is that? I couldn't even imagine that, like saying that a few years ago. The strangest part is I never set out for this to happen. This was not a plan. This was not a goal. It just kind of happened, and I fell into it. But yeah, so running for me is, I mean, a lot of people say it's their meditation, it's their time out, it's for their health, for their mental and physical health. But yeah, for me, it's like it's like brushing my teeth. It's like having sleeping. It's like eating. It's part of my lifestyle. I enjoy it so much that I can't imagine it not being part of my day. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
absolutely.
and certainly there's a meditative aspect to it that I really enjoy, especially with the ultra side. The training has taken me to some amazing places. I mean, right now I'm looking out here, and about 5 kilometers away out the window here, there's the Andes Mountains. Obviously, if you push the apartment buildings aside a bit where I am, and just over the back of that, there's the border to Argentina. You can see the highest mountain in South America. It's over 6,000 meters. So like I can be out here, within 5K running on the road. I'm at the foot of the Andes, and I'm in the mountains. And I will be doing that tomorrow morning. So even better. And it just blows me away to have the ability to be able to move my body to take me to these incredible places.
Yeah.
From the Europe.
Totally relate. I relate to that massively.
Yeah, I mean, from like the the Peak District or the South Downs in the UK, the rolling hills, the countryside on like a misty day, it's just like has its own beauty. The European Alps, the Andes, Chilean Andes, the flat dry trails of Californian coast. There's just so many different experiences out there. So yeah, it's like ingrained in my life so much now, my lifestyle, that I just see it as being a part of what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I completely hear everything you're saying there, and I relate to that massively because I was asked that question once before, which is why I put it in the podcast. And
Yeah,
my answer was the places that I end up going because of running, the experience I get, I'm there because of running, but it has absolutely nothing to do with running, what I get out of it.
yeah, for
And
sure.
you probably can relate to that a little bit as well.
Exactly, because let's be honest, as a runner, if you just wanted the physiological changes, you could go and do this on a treadmill. I mean,
Yeah.
and you could run a lot less and actually probably get a much better benefit without the wear on your body. But yeah, I mean, look at the experiences you have. Anyone that's been out in the outdoors, I think, can relate to that.
Yeah, no, 100%. So last question then. I always ask a top 3 tips question. So the way I'm going to word yours is as follows. What top 3 tips would you give to someone who wants to make running a bigger part of their everyday life?
Okay. Let's say they're beginners or starting out. So
Yeah.
I think start obviously is probably one of the biggest tips. A lot of people say I'm not ready. You just got to start where you are. Start from where you are. So start from where you are. Consistency. I can't hammer this one home enough. Consistency. Rather than trying to do too much too soon, overtrain, go too fast, 3 to 4 times a week. I don't know, 3, 4, 5Ks each time, 6 to 8 weeks, then add about 10%. Build consistency. Do less, go slower than you think you need to, but do it. Consistency is key in anything. Strength and conditioning, running, running a business, a lot of things, doing things consistently and on a regular basis. And the number 3 is a tough one. It's a split between discipline and happiness or joy, the joy you get from it. Because at some point you're going to lose this motivation, you're going to lose the inspiration. You're going to say, man, this is just hard, especially with injury and other things that come up in life. Discipline is okay. I know what I've got to do, and I'm just going to go and do it, regardless of how I actually feel about it right now. And that comes back to keeping it in the moment, because then you're not thinking, oh, this just sucks. You're actually, okay, I'm just doing this right now. So discipline and then joy. Like, obviously, if you're not happy doing it, running, after a period of time, maybe it's not your thing. Like, it's not everyone's thing. Go dancing instead. Go to the gym. I don't know, take up cycling, go kayaking, go rock climbing, whatever spins your wheels and gets you active, go do that. For me, it's running. For other people, it's not. So find that thing that brings you happiness in your life.
Awesome. What an answer to that question. That is incredible. And actually an incredible interview to listen to as well, Ian. I think it's been an absolute pleasure to ask you questions and actually fire a lot of questions that I didn't know I was going to ask you beforehand as well, because the way we went down that conversation was great, and you've given us some real insight there to the reality of what it is to be in the ultra running world on a day-to-day basis as well. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And probably like sort of like a thing for good advice that I give myself every day is to keep it simple too. Keep it super simple. Most things don't matter. Most things are never going to happen that you think that are super bad or whatever. Just like keep it super simple, live in the moment and love your life. That's it.
What an awesome little quote to finish with as well. So if you're ever here in the UK and you're in Cambridge, I can definitely offer you a run and a cup of tea, but I can't offer you any hills to run in because there are none here. But if you're ever in Cambridge, make sure you kind of hook us up and come and say hi and have a lunch and a run with us and our running club here, because it'd be great to meet you in person if you are here. And
for sure, man.
And I've got goals, so maybe we'll end up in the same place sometime as well, and we'll actually get to meet face to face. But for now, Ian, I'd just like to say thanks very much. Really appreciate you coming on the show. And if the guys want to follow your journey, how can they do that?
Yeah, probably easiest on Instagram at ian.morgan. That's the best way to follow me. I am still in the process of finishing my book, so that's hopefully going to be out this year. So once that's out, I'll probably set up a bit of a website-y thing to share some of these stories on as well. But yeah, Instagram, ian.morgan, Facebook, I think it's just Ian Morgan. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Or Ian Morgan Ultra Runner. I'm not sure. Have a look, Ian Morgan on Facebook, and you'll find me there anyway. And yeah, definitely keen to catch up when we come. We'll be in the UK actually a few times this year, so I'll send you a message.
Yeah, no, that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. And if you think there's any value in there for anyone that you know and they need to hear it, then send it over to them. Do share it with them. And obviously, if you could give us, and you are listening on any platform, give us a rating and a review of the episode so people know what it is we're talking about and what it is we can do. But I hope you all enjoyed yourselves, and I hope we can meet here again on the Ultra Running Podcast. Take care.
Ciao.